Prairie dogs have their own language, not language in the way your dog knows the word walk, actual language with nouns and adjectives. A linguist at Northern Arizona University spent decades decoding it. His research suggests prairie dog alarm calls encode the size, shape, speed, and color of approaching predators, which means a prairie dog can describe you to its neighbors more accurately than most eyewitnesses can describe a suspect to a police sketch artist. That is not why we are here today. We are here because if you remove prairie dogs from the Great Plains stop working. The black-tailed prairie dog is a rodent about the size of a small football, which is humiliating for the football. They live in colonies they call towns, and a single town in Texas was once reported to cover 25,000 square miles and contain 400 million individuals. 400 million? That is larger than the current population of the United States, and it was one town of rodents. They do not hibernate. Unlike their ground squirrel cousins who clock out for the winter, black-tailed prairie dogs stay above ground year-round. This makes them available as a food source for every predator on the prairie 12 months a year. Not a great deal for the prairie dogs. Spectacular deal for everything else. They dig. That is their defining professional skill. A prairie dog burrow system is a network of tunnels with multiple entrances, ventilation shafts, listening rooms, actual technical term, nursery chambers, and what appear to be designated toilet areas. They are, for all practical purposes, civil engineers with excellent drainage instincts and no building codes. What prairie dogs provide is what ecologists call a supporting service. That is one of 4 categories of ecosystem services. Supporting services are the foundational processes that make every other category possible: nutrient cycling, soil formation, habitat provision, primary production. If provisioning services are the stuff ecosystems hand you directly, and regulating services are the background maintenance keeping conditions livable, supporting services are the infrastructure those two run on. Without the foundation, the other 3 categories stop. Prairie dogs are supporting the prairie literally. Their burrows aerate compacted soil and increase water infiltration. They create microhabitats that over 100 vertebrate species depend on. Burrowing owls nest in abandoned prairie dog holes. Rattlesnakes thermoregulate in them. The black-footed ferret, one of the most endangered mammals in North America, eats almost nothing except prairie dogs and lives almost exclusively in their burrows. Remove the prairie dog and the ferret has no food and no home. Remove the prairie dog and the burrowing owl has no nest. Remove the prairie dog and the soil compacts, the water runs off, the grass diversity crashes, the grazers leave, and the predators follow. So prairie dog burrows to aerated soil, to water infiltration, to grass diversity, to bison habitat, to black-footed ferret survival. That is the chain. That is a supporting service. In the early 20th century, the U.S. federal government and the livestock industry decided prairie dogs were pests. They competed with cattle for grass. This was debatable, but the cattle industry was not interested in debating. What followed was one of the most systematic wildlife poisoning campaigns in American history. Compound 1080 strychnine, zinc phosphide federal agencies distributed poison to ranchers at industrial scale. The stated goal was eradication. It nearly worked. Prairie dog colony acreage dropped from an estimated 100 million acres to roughly 700,000, a 98% reduction. And with the colonies went everything that depended on them. The black-footed ferret was declared extinct in 1979. Then a ranch dog in Meteets, Wyoming dragged one home in 1981, and a remnant population of 18 animals was found. 18, the entire species reduced to 18 animals because we poisoned their food source and their housing on purpose with federal funding for decades. The ferret is still listed as endangered. Recovery depends entirely on prairie dog colony restoration. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service now actively protects prairie dog towns to save the ferret. The same federal government that funded the poisoning is now funding the recovery from the poisoning. Nobody in the building appears to find this ironic. We studied their language while we poisoned their towns, published papers on the sophistication of their alarm calls while federal trucks spread strychnine across the prairie. That is not an irony. That is what it looks like when one part of a civilization is paying attention and another part is not. And the second part has the budget. Thanks for watching. If you want more episodes about the species your civilization forgot to thank, subscribe. I will be back with more uncompensated infrastructure.